I want to check in my mobile how that link is going.
Okay.
Okay, we should be live now. Yeah, I think we are live. I'm just saying that so I can see. I still cannot hear myself. Just saying that so I can see.
Yeah.
It's perfect. All right, I'll put myself. Still cannot hear myself. Just saying that so I can see. It will be a loop. All right. Good. We are all set. I will just maybe wait 10 minutes or something so you can get started. Ishraq, if you want, you can start sharing your desktop and we'll let everyone with that image of your starting slide, okay?
All right. Just a second.
I still don't see anything. Okay, I see it now. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so let's wait maybe 10 minutes and we'll get started, okay?
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you. I'll put
Sure.
myself here.
Okay.
Well, guys, we'll get started in about 5 minutes.
Just another day. Everyone cannot hold my eyes. The false beauties, all I see is red. Dazzled by the beams, troubled by my mind. See these walls are full of reasons. I have nothing to face. Am I kinda crazy? What am I trying to hide? Is my mind a lazy to the fight? Oh, I want to know. Could it change my life? Will the light go down in the sunset? So I turn my mind, I'm a deep inside. Seek another feeling, oh, the final close of eyes. It's all I say. Am I kinda crazy? What am I trying to hide? Is my mind a lazy to the fight? Oh, I want to know. Could it change my life? Will the light go down in the sunset? Am I kinda crazy? What am I trying to hide? Just another day.
This is it, guys. For everybody that is online, I would like to make some announcements before we get started. Ishraq is right there, ready to get started. As everybody knows, next week we will have our next symposium. All the community is really excited for that. This time in Orlando, and we'll be doing a recap, perhaps 1 month the symposium in our Sug-Br group. This is somehow different experience for us because this is our first on group. We had an issue in our venue, and that was something that forces us to do today as 100% online. Sorry for that, my local friends, but that was something we couldn't avoid today. Well, what else? I guess we're good to get started. I'll invite Ishraq Al Fataftah to get started with this presentation: Omnichannel Retail, Personal and Contextual Experiences. Ishraq, is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodrigo. It's a pleasure to be with you virtually today, guys. My name is Ishraq, and a solution architect and a 3-time Sitecore MVP. And let me put you in the context of why this topic, why omnichannel in retail. So basically, for the past 6 years, I've been managing different teams and working with different clients and agencies. And for the most part, most of our focus is on the technical aspect of the business, right? So we know how Sitecore work. We know the technical details of how architecting Sitecore solutions. But when it comes to marketing and the user experience, and in the back of our head, for the most part, we think this is a job that's not for us. It's for marketing people. Um, However, most often we find ourselves in a position where we try to accommodate both parts. So you might have some certain like requirements from your marketing team with specific journeys when they use different lingos that's not a daily kind of words that we deal with on a daily basis, and you want to communicate that to your team. And on the other hand, we know Sitecore well. We know sometimes, and we know the websites that we build, right? So sometimes you want to go to your marketing team and tell them, look, if you want to achieve this goal and do this and that, you have to go this route. And the thing you're trying to propose that won't work in our case. So I've started actually earlier this year talking to different people from Sitecore, and through different talks I'm having through SOCCON and hopefully in Symposium, is to try focus on this area that's between the tech and between the marketing, and try um, to give and share as much as knowledge as we can. So the next time we talk about these terminologies and these concepts, this is not something new. This is not something we're going to go to Google and look it up. So, okay. All right. So the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about retail actually is Amazon, right? So the first thing that comes is an example of a retail website is Amazon. However, Amazon is just representing one dimension of retail or of the industry. Actually, it's e-tailing, and despite that, it actually comprises more than 75% of the retail market in the US in 2017. Actually, like studies and researches are showing that more than 50% of omnichannel customers, and when we say omnichannel, think about every channel that comes to mind, whether it's through the website, through the mobile app, it's through the tablet or the store. So more than 50% of customers are actually still coming from brick and mortar. So the internet did not take over brick and mortar. It's still relevant to more than 55% of millennial shoppers actually in 2018. So it's really important when we start to think about creating websites, and it's regardless whether it's a site code or not, to think about all the different points of interaction with your website. You need to make sure that if you have a physical store, how you make sure this experience is relevant and consistent to your customers when they go to your website and vice versa. All right. Another thing I wanted to talk about, actually the experience that we're getting from Amazon. So basically, when you think about it, it's an indifferent, what do we say? It's not indifferent. So it's actually the same experience you're getting if you're buying a battery or a dress, right? So you go to Amazon, you're gonna uh, search for the product you want, you're gonna read the reviews, check the different prices, and then click the buy button. So that's one dimensional kind of experience, which leaves the arena for more and more omnichannel retailers actually to compete, uh, especially those who have both online and offline um, channels, and they can create actually a value for their customers in the domain of customer experience. So since the release of Commerce 9 back in October last year, I know that we've seen many of our clients are actually moving to Site 9. And earlier this year, we had this case of a nutrition shop that they have this really nice um, shops. They've done like really good efforts categorizing the different nutrition products and data plans. And if you go and ask anyone of the staffs about any information you have, they give you this information on spot. So on the other hand, they have this irrelevant website, and they wanted to do a revamp of their online website on top of Sitecore and to use Sitecore Commerce 9. And we all know, like, I think it's fair to say that by now, to create a responsive website and to come with a nice imagery and make it match the actual website, that's something that's pretty much common and straightforward for us nowadays. However, when you look at some aspects of the business, like when you want your customers now to move from the shop and tell them, I have a new website, I want to direct the traffic to be both ways. Now, since I have a better online presence, there's a disconnect. And if you look at the different implementations that's been done since the beginning of this year, there's many different approaches and way to do that, right? One common thing is to go with a clean instance of Sitecore 9. You would go ahead and do the upgrade. You will install the commerce engine. You're gonna install the SXA storefront, move things around, move the home into the storefront, and actually import your catalog, your commerce catalog, and then um, everything is done, right? So without discussing the pros and cons of having that actually as your way to go, there's other challenges to retail that's beyond the technical aspects of these websites. So and the main challenge that retailer faces, and this is actually agnostic to the technology that's being used, is, as I mentioned, is the disconnect between the online and offline. We have the universal issue of shopping cart abandonment. How like more than 65% of customers actually just close the browser while the products are in the shopping cart. And basically how you're going to connect your existing third-party systems such as ERP and CRM with your commerce solution. So for the sake of this session, there's different ways of approaching these challenges. And again, it's not specifically related to Sitecore, but I like mainly the customer maturity model that they use. I've been using it for a while. So if you're interested about such topic, I would recommend reading the book Connect. That gives you more and more ideas and strategies how you measure actually the maturity of your customer and walk them through different stages and steps in order to create a customer base and gain loyalty to them. So for the sake of this of this session, I'm going to talk mainly about the disconnect that we have between online and offline, and the main strategy of actually discovering who your audience are. And based on that, you start to build the different tactics to provide them with the relevant experience, whether it's in shop or in a store. And you can do that through personalization. And the other thing, especially in the case of shopping cart abandonment, how you make sure every touch point of the customer with your business is actually shoppable. How you make sure that you're always going to bring them back to your store in order to convert them and make them do the actual purchase. All right, so let me take a step back and look at the entire customer experience and then go from there. So basically, the customer lifecycle starts by acquisition. And what we mean by that is the different strategies and tactics that businesses do in order to increase the awareness of their brands, to attract customers to engage with their so actually in this case they're not called customers, they're called prospects. So how you are potential prospects to convert them into actual customers. After that, you don't want this to be a hit and run process, right? You want them to come back to your website and continuously buy products from there. So how you are going to develop their accounts across the different life cycle. Also, one of the most important steps that most of brands actually tend to overlook is after that. So after a while of creating these customers and make sure that they're turned into loyal ones for you, what are the different techniques that you are going to show them that you actually and you care, and you are going to give them a value of being loyal to your brand. And finally, there's some sort of customers who are more into seasonal ones. So they might be typically interacting with your website if there's like offers during Christmas, or it's Easter, or based on seasons, winter, spring. And they typically drift away based on their preferences. So you want to continuously win them back by understanding their behavior during their interaction with your website and providing them with the different activities to always win them back and get them back to your site. All right, so again, there's a whole lot of spectrum in terms of personalization tactics when it comes to the commerce context. For the sake of for this time, I'm going to focus mainly on three things: segmentation, the customer profile, and conditional recommendation. So segmentation is basically it's categorizing your customers or grouping them based on characteristics or interactions or at which life stage of the customer life cycle they are in. And I'm interested mainly in two things. Number one is by audience. So are these unknown customers for you? This is their first time visiting your website, so you have no idea who they are. Or if they are known customers, they look into your website and you know exactly who they are. So if these are unknown customers, you always need to keep in mind that I don't at this stage know anything about them. So I shouldn't be showing them like specific products or promotion, because you still don't know their intent. You don't know what their preference is, what they are looking for in your website. So you don't want to start to lose this trust as the early interaction with your brand. And the other one is the brand interaction. And this one is really nice because it actually makes sense and it ties directly to the customer life cycle. So we have the activities and things you're going to do and implement before the purchase, before they actually go and hit the buy button. And there's during that, while they're filling their shopping cart and they're intending to go and going through the checkout process. And again, this is the most overlooked. But after they leave your website, they've done the purchase, they're happy with that, the different things that you need to do in order to continuously giving them the experience that they are expecting. All right. So now I'm going to show this based on the audience. So basically, I'm going to show different scenarios of how to do that for unknown customers and then move to non-customers. So for the unknown customers, as I mentioned, you still know nothing about them. The quick wins that you need to employ in order to make sure that you are giving them a proper and relevant experience to them is to look at their intent. How do they actually reach to your website, and what are the different activities they are doing through that? And basically, there is two things that you can utilize. So the number one, if they are coming from a campaign that you've already created. So at the beginning of the launch of the website, they wanted to generate some sort of traffic and measure that by giving those who are coming and buy in store, when we print their receipt, there's a link of a page that's called in store. Once they reach to that, that's gonna trigger a campaign. So we identify that those are the customers that we had in store. So that's one way of measuring their intent, because they're coming, they already did a purchase and they're coming from the site, but maybe from your actual shop. Maybe by now they didn't log in, but that's fine. You still have some sort of information about them. And the other thing is their implicit browsing behavior, what they're actually doing on the website. Are they just browsing products? Are they doing a comparison of different categories? Are they reading the articles or whatever complementary information you are giving them? So that's a good start to look at for those who still have no idea about it. So basically, in order to do that, and if you're not familiar with it, so you go to the site called dashboard. There's a button there's a module called a campaign creator. So when you click on that, you start to define all the necessary assets and stuff that you need to put in a place before you kick off your campaign. And the first one is the different channels that you are using. In our case, you're gonna define the different online and offline channel that you want to measure actually and utilize for your campaign. Then you want to create the campaign itself. Typically, it has a time frame, so you have a beginning and end. And you need to identify your own intent, the reason behind creating this campaign. So now you know that you're tying this campaign to a landing page that this is for people coming from the in-store. But what do you want from that? Do you only want to collect information about these customers, or you want their experience to be transcendent from the shop into your website by providing them with discounts? In addition, which areas are you focusing? If those maybe you had some sort of discount for like a gluten-free products in your store, you want to make sure that this same campaign is running on your website. The other thing, and I like this one a lot, is when you create your personas. So persona, it's like characteristics that help you or help like marketing people to know to whom they are doing these activities. And a nice thing about it is that once you identify uh, different customers and do they belong to this certain persona, you have different ways of utilizing that later on. You can assign them with engagement value, so that starts to accumulate over time, and you go to the experience analytics and start to gain more information about these different customers that coming to your website. One thing is um, their propensity to buy. And we mean by that, during their behavior on the website, are they most probably is going to be clicking the buy button, or they're just roaming around? And the nice concept is the hot, medium, and cold personas. And by that, if this is a hot customer, if you identify this as a hot customer, then there's a highly likely they're gonna click the buy button. So you start to target them with the product-related CTAs and promotions. You start to give them the information they need directly based on the product they're looking at. So that's some sort of an easy task for you. But if those are just, they're in between, they're looking into related products, they're reading the articles that you're having, let's say for gluten-free product, then the activities you're going to provide them is going to be more into, all right, how about I'm going to give them a CTA for a daily routine, like breakfast for a diet, if they're interested in this kind of product or that, because they're reading information. You start to target them sometimes with complementary products and related ones that eventually might turn them to actually even buy that if you already have it as a digital format that you can sell. And for those that most likely they're not gonna do anything with it, with the product, they're just there's no button for the kind of products that they are looking at. You still don't want to lose them. You still want to gain their trust. So again, your focus is not to bombard them with irrelevant like promotions or specific products that we know for sure that they might not be interested with, because they actually didn't even click that. So you need to be aware about the kind of recommendations you are going the customers during their interaction with the website. And there's two concepts actually related to this, and this is what we call upsell and cross-sell. Yeah, so this is the where you define the profiles and personas in the campaign creator. So upselling concept is tied to, if you are interested like in promoting a product of a higher value to your customers. So let's say they've been looking at medium size and small size, so you want to push them to buy actually the full size or the larger size. So you offer them like a discount if they went ahead and buy that. Or if you know that they're interested in this type of nutrition, there's actually other products that might be more suitable for them, that's not necessarily matching their search term, but that's basically it's more interesting products that they can actually use. So that's what we call upselling. Cross-selling is when you want to sell them actually the complementary products, related products to this. And an example on that would be if they're buying, let's say, protein bars and protein powder, then you give them the shaker, right? And we all know that for many of us as customers, we tend to go with these complementary products, because when you start this product, then you're gonna look next, okay, if I buy this, then maybe I need this and this and that. And it's not necessarily always other customers, like when you look at recommendation that comes from other customers, that's something that necessarily can be provided on reviews. But as a website, you can help your customers do that by increasing your cross-selling activities. All right, so by far, so we covered the part of the unknown customers, and now let's take a look on those we actually know. So if you know this is a customer, whether you track their information, you know who are they based on XTB, or they're logging, and you can track their profile information. And if they did the purchase of like a nutrition bars 2 days ago, you don't want them to target them with the follow-ups, whether it's an emails or personalization, completely on that specific protein bar they just bought, right? You want to show them that you can anticipate, and you show them that this is the next product that you might be interested, and you need to show them that you are one step ahead, because you understand their need, and you can provide them with a more relevant experience than that they are expecting. And same thing, if they bought this protein bar 2 weeks ago, you don't want to keep showing them the same similar products after a month. You want to introduce them into something new, so you increase your cross-selling base. All right, so this is when we start to look into personalization based on the profiles, we can utilize actually the customer profile from the commerce, from the Sitecore commerce. So this is the dashboard, and if you click on the customers action, then you're gonna be shown the customer all the details about your customers. I'm just taking screenshots from the Habitat Shop for this scenario, but you're gonna be prompted with to select which shops you're interested to look into your customers, and you can select whatever customer profile you have, and you're gonna see the different information that you already stored about this customer. So you see their entitlement, the different digital products that they've already bought, and you start to learn more and more about your customer. You get their shopping addresses, and you can utilize that later on in their shopping cart personalization. A nice thing to look at is the included tags and the profile. So this is mainly used for segmentation. It helps you to tag your customers with specific tags that you know that these customers are interested in, and then you can build your segmented list based on these tags. You can track their interaction with the website through the experience analytics. It opens actually a whole lot of different tactics to utilize whenever you're actually doing the tags. All right, so by far this is, so we're talking about Sitecore, right? And when we talk Sitecore, we talk both content and commerce. So this part mainly focused on how to utilize the marketing techniques for content targeting. And now let's see another aspect of that, how we can utilize the business tools in Sitecore, for example, to do promotions. So and I think when we think about related products is if you actually get if the customer came in and they shared their location, right? And you have a shop nearby, so you can show them that there is a physical store that we own, like let's say 10 minutes walk from where you are at now, that you can go actually and pick up your products, or you can look for whatever you've been searching here and then see the actual product in store. And that's a huge benefit of using related products based on location. For the promotion, but let's have these two scenarios. We want to look at how to personalize your shopping cart through the promotion manager, and the other one, how we implement rule-based, or what we call it, in-page personalization. So for the sake of this, we want to create a customer bought like around $15 worth of a cart. You want to give them a discount with 10%. And if they actually spent more than $100, you want to give them a free shipment because they've been generous enough to pay that money. So, nice thing again about I'm not going to say the customer experience, our experience interacting with this new commerces is it's the same experience. It's very intuitive for you to go through this entire thing, even without looking about it online. You don't have to read the documentation to know if I'm going to check on promotion. I'm going to click the promotion manager, and that's going to prompt me with something similar. I'm going to see with the price module or with the catalog module, it says a promotion box. So you're going to create a promotion box specific for your shop, and then you're going to start to add the different promotion based on your business goals, right? So we're going to click on adding a promotion, and basically it's going to give you the option to add all the different information that's going to be shown for your customer when they check their cart. You give it a validity. We want to run this campaign for a month. And always make sure that you are connecting this with the actual campaign that you are pulling across the website. And always revisit that. A nice thing about it is like the A/B testing. And why it's important, because sometimes if I'm going to give them a 10% off for a smaller amount of this, that might not generate much actually selling activities as you would expect. So it's really important to always check whatever you've gaining of insights through the different campaigns and personalization that you're doing on the website, and whenever you're creating these different promotions. So you provide the display card text, whatever information you wanted to be shown to the customer. And if you're familiar with Sitecore rule-based personalization, it's actually gives you always the option to create a rule, specify a condition, and subsequently what's the action that's going to happen. So this is like, actually it's the same experience that you should expect from Sitecore. So once you add that, you're gonna add a condition. And for our case, we want the cart item subtotal to compare to a specific value. You want it to be equal or more of $50 amount, right? Then you're gonna define which catalog you're going to apply this promotion to, and if you want to apply this whether for the entire catalog items or for specific items. Let's say if we're interested in just gluten-free, gluten, whatever products you have, then you specifically select that I want those items to be targeted with this promotion. So now we have our condition. We have our what we call it operator, which is like the values equal or more, and we have different options to select with. Then we're gonna see the action, and the action that we're looking for is the 10% off of the total shopping cart. The other option is to get a free shipping. So these are predefined that comes out of the box uh, with the promotion manager. And this nice thing about it is, since everything is built on microservices and it's easy to extend, you can extend this to whatever business need you're having. And obviously, after you finish some sort of a workflow, you're gonna request approval, you're gonna approve it, and be ready to have your promotions displayed and the shopping cart for customers whenever the amount of products value and the shopping cart are matching the criteria that you just defined. Another aspect as well is they've added the rules to the rule-based engine to look into the shopping cart, and that helps you even with if the shopping cart is empty or if they're manipulating, there's an addition and removal of products on the customer shopping cart. You can also provide them with personalized content that's tied to these rules. So as a quick recap of this part of the presentation is, when it comes to customers, you always need to know your audience in order to give them this connected, relevant, and optimized experience across all the different channels you have. You need to know them and then to target them with what actually is relevant through the different stages. Again, there's a different ways of implementing all of this. This is just an example of how you can do that, but this is a starter. This is a start to implement personalization in the commerce context. The other thing is the shopping cart abandonment. And basically, again, this is an universal issue that's not related to a type of industry or even a technology. More than 65% of shoppers just leave for different reasons, and it's really important to identify why we are actually closing the browser and not going through the shopping process. There's definitely a reason why 65% of customers are doing that. And by identifying these different reasons, you can always employ the right strategy to tackle that. So they say that more than 40% is because they have inconvenient return policy. So if they buy a product online and there's nothing that guarantee if they get it broken or damaged, or if you don't actually like it, after you paid this amount of shipping and you want to go through the hassle of returning the item and get it back, that leaves 40% of customers, they don't want to proceed with it. Or they have high shipping charges, or there's an extra amount of money in the cart that you haven't seen it when you added those products to the cart. And again, this brings you to the fact that if you know your customers, if you know your business like really well, you can tackle some of these simply by giving them the option. If you can detect their location, if they have provided their address, and you know there's a store nearby, then you can tweak your checkout process to have a pickup in a store, because you're going to show them that they have a 10 minutes workshop nearby that they can go for it. So now there's zero shipping cost. There's a better return policy because you're going to go and pick your products from the shop. You're going to see it, make sure that it's status, so you can sorry, you can tackle these challenges just by knowing your business and knowing your customer, and just actually do the math. Other strategies, basically the first thing that always comes to mind is to send them emails with a link to your shopping cart. And that can happen through different ways. And nice thing about Sitecore, with the introduction of the marketing automation enhancement on the EXM, is that now it's very easy to use. Again, it's very intuitive. It's a matter of drag and drop, and you can build any campaign and any engagement plan you have in mind just by drag and drop. And that can, the nice thing about it is, again, you've continuously checking these different campaigns, right? You're checking the experience analytics and getting more insights based on customer segments, based on tags, on different categorization you have on the website, and you continuously are updating these plans, so you're not stuck with one plan and then just continuously do it. And because it's easy, it gives you the opportunity uh, to continuously do the update with no overhead or any backend uh, like activities to do that. Another thing that's nice about Sidequest is the path analyzer. And actually, if you're whether if you're implementing a multi-step on different pages, checkout process or whatever, the path analyzer can give you exactly at what stage of their checkout process or their engagement they are dropping off. When did they actually abandon um, the checkout page and that just closed the browser? Is it because you've brought them with a login at that point and now they are not to do that? Or maybe they've gone through step 1 and step 2 and suddenly you've actually shown them a promotion, a CTA with a link they can click on that redirects them to something else. So sometimes you might over personalize, you might over promote and recommend your customers, and that might end up you losing customers. So it's really important to identify at which stage you are, there's that disconnect is happening. Marketing automation, as I mentioned, by far I think most of us knows what marketing automations. And the nice thing about it is that can be targeted for like specific contacts, right? You feel unique for every single interaction you have, and that could be different from other customers for the marketing automation. And again, this is not only to be employed for the abandoned car situation. This can start from the first step of the acquisition and end with the win back, and you can create whatever marketing automation and you have in mind. So for your loyal customers, you can send them on their anniversary a campaign. Once they hit a mark, you identify for these customers, right? So the word for marketing activities that's created by the marketing automation actually are limitless. And the XM, and I know like for like most of us we don't have this like really nice experience with it from previous versions. But I think with the latest version, they did a great job enhancing that. Also, like Pete Navarre is doing really good job showing the different capabilities in inside Core 9. And if any of you guys are attending the symposium, there's lots and lots of interesting talks around that, around creating loyalty programs, around promotions and how to interact with commerce in different ways. So let me just proceed more into into the marketing automation plan for abandoned cart. And Sidecore out of the box, whenever you install the SXA storefront, it provides you with this plan already defined. It's an easy one, straightforward. You can add as many different conditions and actions as you want through that, but you have to define one per shop. By default, they have a condition to see if the cart is empty. If it's empty, then there is nothing you should be doing. If yes, they're gonna check if the contact that you are working with is actually have an address that they provide you with their information when they did the login. If yes, then you can proceed to send them an email based on a campaign that you've already created. If not, then you are you have to leave. And again, whenever you're going to trigger the automation plan for the shopping cart, is dependent on the business, and you have to be careful on when to define it. So some people gonna start to activate the automation plan for customers once they log in into your website, and some of them once they actually start to add products to the shopping cart, or if they're idle on the website for a certain amount of time. So it's really important because sometimes the capabilities of these marketing automation plans in terms of triggering and when you are going to enroll the contact in the XDB through the XConnect is actually limited. So that's something you need to keep in mind when defining that. Another thing, again, is if you want this to be, let's say, something that's triggered why this is happening, why they are in context on during the shopping and they're looking into their cart. And for some reasons, the only solution is to mark that as a live event because of the GDPR consideration. If the contact actually choose to opt out of any tracking, or they want to gain their privacy, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you can trigger part of your marketing automation while they're still in session. You don't have the luxury because you don't have their information to trigger it later on after they leave your website. But we always need to keep in mind live events, like any other real-time implementation that's performance exhausting for your website. You need to be careful when to mark any of these events in your campaign with being alive or not. And I think by now most of us also know how marketing campaigns are created. The dashboard, again, anything with analytics can give you a really good insight about how the different customers are interacting with the email campaigns that you're sending. So if, like, let's say 90% of the follow-up emails you're sending for those with abandoned cart has been not in the state of not being opened, then there's something wrong with these emails, or maybe they're going to the spam. Maybe you have to employ a different strategy to do that. So it's always look at the dashboard and learn, and again test with different scenarios until you find the proper campaign for your customer. Another nice thing I like about it is, and specifically inside Core9, was the introduction of segmented lists in the list manager that can be used in the email campaign, or actually even in the automation plan. You might opt out into sending them email campaigns right away once you identify that these have left your website and they still have products and they spent like 2 to 3 hours with no response. You can send them right away, or you can add them to a list. Let's say I'm going to call it abandoned cart list, and later on you can target them with these follow-up campaigns. Maybe next time they come to your website and you've already marked them as those who live with abandoned cart, you can try a different kind of personalization, whether it's in page or the recommendation that's gonna be more appealing for them, create more and more trust with your brand that gonna turn and convert everything and every click in your website into an actual shopping experience that's of a benefit for both of you and for your customer. Again, there's different type of segmentation that's not only based on the audience and interaction. You can do that if this is identified as a first purchase based on device or gender. If you identify that, because different people have different tastes, and you can build different campaigns based on this information. Same thing with the age and level. So don't limit yourself for whatever Sitecore is providing, out of the box or not. Always learn from your customer. Interaction with your website. And a final note on this is, typically we don't do tech for the sake of tech, right? We're doing it to provide customers with more proper and optimized customer experience. So thank you guys for being with me today. I hope that you learned something or two out of this session, and let me know if you have any questions. And thank you, user group Brazil, for having me, and to entertain yourself with talking about marketing and non-technical related stuff at this time. Rodrigo, over to you.
I'm sorry, I was on mute here. Thank you, Ishraq. That was an amazing presentation. Everybody in the chat window here is really praising you for that amazing content. I got a couple questions here. I would like to give you. The first one is from Amitabh. He's saying, again, excellent content from you. He's wondering if out of the box, do we have any option to personalize a Sitecore form render using form wrapper in SXA? So in SXA, using form wrapper, do we have an out of the box way to personalize that form?
I actually don't have an answer for that. I've worked with the SSA storefront provided out of the box, but like I didn't work that deep on personalizing the form actually itself. So something to look at for sure.
Good. Yes, I do have one question myself. The rest of the audience, please let me know if you have any other question and drop in the chat window. For the meantime, I will do my question. I'm sorry if it's basic or stupid or out of your scope, but I'm thinking here, since you have the omnichannel word in the top in your title, how is the, how do we execute the linking between the online experience and the offline experience? We know that during an online experience, you identify a contact and things like that. But how does that works in a offline, in the real world?
So basically, and thank you for this question, maybe the focus was based on the scenario I presented was to move it from the offline into the online. But actually what happens is that when you have your store, you build your catalog, interactive catalogs for your customers. You have their tablets across your shop that is linked to your website. So let's say, and using the recent technology such as beacon technology, and if you have a basic Wi-Fi set up on your website, and the moment the customer walks into your shop, you can trigger them with a push notification to their mobile app saying that welcome to the store. If you are interested to gain more information about the products we're giving, this is the link to our website. So this is where you start to, and you when you give them that link again, it's similar to the offline campaign that we've created. You already defined everything in terms of logistics and campaigns in Sitecore, and you provide, let's say, the in-store page as part of the link that you are giving them. So once your customer is clicking that, then you know for sure that this is a customer that's coming through the push notification of an SMS I've just sent them when they walked into the website. Another thing is through loyalty cards. So let's say if for some reason they don't have the loyalty card with them and they want to have a discount once they pay for this, using their email information, once you log that into your point of sale, and it's through the commerce connect, during the integration with these different third-party system, you are actually updating the same catalog and the same information and the same profile that you already have on Sitecore. Another approach would be, as I mentioned at the beginning, some sort of, when you print the receipt, you give them a discount, and you already track that discounts of this kind of type that's coming from the offline channel. So there's different tactics and things that you can employ just to make that link from the web, from like the offline, from the actual store back to your website. Hope that answers some of the stuff that you can actually use to do that.
All right, good. I would like to take advantage of my own question to announce that Niche Tech is going to execute a demo in the next symposium when we are using face recognition to recognize a contact and do the link with the offline and online world by reading their faces. This is one approach we're testing. Jamican, that was a small joke, I guess. Everyone come to create loyalty program with commerce talk at symposium. Right.
Yeah, that's a talk I'm personally definitely going to attend.
Yeah, today I made a small joke with Jamie. We will be in the symposium. He will be presenting. He of course will be there. Okay, thank you, Ishraq. Anyone else has any question? Let me know in the drop in the chat window.
All right, thank you guys.
Okay, otherwise, yeah, we're good, I guess. Thank you, Ishraq. You're again very welcome, and I hope to see you again in the Sitecore Group Brazil. Thank you
for having me.
Okay, small announcement here, guys, just to make sure everyone knows. We are 2 weeks from the symposium, and after symposium, we are going to do a recap in the next Sitecore Group in Brazil. Perhaps a few weeks after the symposium, myself, Diego, and Vinicius, we're going to do a presentation on the recap, everything we saw on the symposium, and in the site MVP summit, everything that can be disclosed, of course. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. Don't leave the live broadcasting, guys. I'll be right back, okay, for my presentation. See you.
I'm the one who waits for being alive again. Recall the past because there is no hope for being here. Day by day and night, the troubles cover on my head. The best I can do won't be enough to waste my time on it. And I will never say that it's over, my friend, because now I can see what's reality. I saw the bomber man blow into sky. The lost army just makes people cry. A crowd of beggars are ready to die. Ask yourself, are you ready to die? Please define yourselves, the mankind can be worse. Oh, receive friends, the future promised land. Scientists waste their time looking outside the place we live. Already full of glory, but still searching for the key. I saw the bomber man go into sky. The lost army just makes people cry. A crowd of beggars are ready to die. Ask yourself, are you ready to die? Who knows what else can be done for us? Who knows? And now it makes me while I try to reach a reason to stay here. Oh, my feelings tells me life isn't bad, and I will never say that it's over, my friend, because now I can see what's reality. I saw the bomberman blowing to sky. The lost army just makes people cry. A crowd of beggars are ready to die. Ask yourself, are you ready to die? Ready to die. Just wonder why. Ready to die.
Okay, I guess we are ready to go. Just listen to Syndrome Ready to Die. Thank you, guys. Okay, I guess I'll get started. So, this is my presentation about an experiment that we did together. Um, Myself and the company Niche Tech that I worked. So, it's a small experiment that we did. Very interesting one. We call that Nuptial Experiment not because anything else, but because the template that we're using is called Nuptial. Someone can ask, maybe I'm trying to marry with SXA. Yes, I'm trying to understand SXA as much as I can. So I maybe can adopt as a tool to use everywhere. Okay, so a little bit about me. I will go fast about that. Everybody in Brazil ended up knowing about me one day out the water. So Rodrigo Peplau, working with Sitecore since 2010, three-time awarded MVP. Probably working with Niche Tech and probably member of Team Go Horse in the hackathon. Okay, so a quick agenda here of my presentation, guys. Let me know in the chat window. I have my eyes on there. If I need to stop, if I need to go slower or anything else, or if you have any question, let me know. Okay. Right. So here's a quick agenda. I will talk about the non-functional requirements of the experiment. Talk about the 3 milestones that we divided the experiment and the outputs of these experiments. All right, so a quick introduction. The experiment consists in one of the development tests that we had in-house in Niche Tech. And we decided to execute that and put in practice that development test with SXA. The test was originally written to be a .NET implementation, but it was assuming that you can use a CMS as well. It was using a Bootstrap template, a free Bootstrap template called Nuptial. That's why the experiment has the name. And the scope is very small. It's limited to 2 pages and 4 dynamic components. Okay, you see there's 2 pages only. Right, and here goes the non-functional requirements. So the implementation is based in a Bootstrap template that we have pre-done, so it's there to be used. Okay, the implementation can be done with native .NET MVC or any .NET-based CMS. Of course, the second one is our pick. We'll be using .NET 4.6.2 or .NET Core, SQL Server. So those are the non-functional requirements that we had to obey because we need to make the test, okay? The test needs to be executed with these non-functional requirements. And how that applies to SXA. So using the existing HTML template, that's the biggest problem that we had in this experiment. So the prefactor Bootstrap template is the challenge because the HTML is there, okay? So we should respect CSS, JavaScript, markups, and everything. So how do we do that? If you look at the normal implementation of SXA using Creative Exchange and everything, you see something like this, which if you go and interpret this graphic, you see that the natural process is that you execute using SXA, you're going to build your wireframes, right? You're going to enter your content. You're going to build your themes. And then using Creative Exchange, you will export the theme so that a front-end dev can work with that. Okay, so we are facing here one important truth, that you're not supposed to do this way. Yeah, I mean, you can do this way, but SXA was built to work in a different way. Okay, so in SXA, the sequence, I would say the happy sequence will be, you define UX, right? Using SXA, you build the wireframes. When I say that you build the wireframes, you're not going to bother about how your site is looking yet. Only that the things are in the correct places. So the header is in the header, the image in the left is in the left, and etc. So you build that using out-of-the-box components from SXA, and then you'll be able to, using SXA again, enter the content. And again, using SXA, you're going to export using Creative Exchange, and basically get your CSS and JavaScript files in a zip file, so you can send to the agency, the front-end agency. That way the front-end agency can work disconnected with Sitecore, and that's the whole idea between this. Right? So this is a sequence that is good. You create a UX, number one. Number two, you will build the wireframes and add the content. Number three, you're going to export using Creative Exchange, export the zip files, and give that to the front-end guy or the agency. The front-end agency will do all the changes in that zip file, will zip back and send back to you, so you can import back to Creative Exchange using Creative Exchange and have that on Sitecore. Okay, so you do that loop several times until you're approved and you have the final pages. This is perfect. However, what if you have something different? Applying to SXA, this is not good. So what we have, our experiment context is this, okay? We are creating the UX design and the wireframes and the content during the creative phase, okay, outside of Sitecore, disconnected from Sitecore. And then we have all the index, all the HTML files there for you to use. You can double click, it will open in a browser. But okay, how do we implement that? We are here trying to, in this simulation, to ask the front-end agency to create the HTML so we can import to Sitecore. No, this is not going to work, okay? And this is exactly what my experiment is trying to do. So, okay, so the happy path doesn't work. What are we going to do next? Before that, I would like to tell you there are also some extra limitations. Okay, this comes from the official SXA documentation. What front ends can do with the Creative Exchange package and what they cannot. So front ends can add and modify images and files within the media library. He can add classes to nodes that has this comment, add your class here, and change images in the rendering, okay? But other than that, there are a lot of things front ends cannot do. Front ends cannot change anything in the HTML structure, no matter if they want, and they usually want. Delete existing CSS classes, this is not allowed. No. Update text content, again, this is not going to happen. Change base theme folders, no. Okay, so these will not be imported back to the system and can damage your site. This is in the official documentation. This is not myself telling you. Okay, so we got an inescapable conclusion. SXA was not designed to adapt to a predefined markup. Okay, front ends should make SXA pages look good at the CSS level, meaning that using Creative Exchange, front ends should be changing CSS JavaScript files to make the page looks good. Means that, you're not supposed to do this way, right? So we, of course, we consider aborting the experiment. What else we can do? Because, you know, this is not supposed to do doing this way. What can we do? I will say reasons that we choose to continue. Our project does not have budget to a front-end dev, okay? Doing the right way, you know, because we already have that HTML. Our project has a strong site core team, which is myself. And the experiment is planned doable with site core, right? Out of the box site core, vanilla site core. Thus, it would be a good try to do that, as I say, why not? Having a predefined markup, it's pretty common scenario, you know, which will potentially make this an interesting experiment. That's why we choose to continue. And I'd like to bring a few scenarios where this flow would apply, okay? I hear people complaining about not being able to do this because it's a very common thing to have a front-end agency hired to implement the HTML static and give you that together for you, and the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Or maybe sometimes you have a legacy system being replatformed and the markup should be respected, you know? Or maybe you have a layout template purchased from a commercial catalog. Or maybe you are using a free template. Why not? Why not? I know Sitecore is expensive, but you can still use a free layout, for instance, in a non-profit organization. So cases like that brings the idea, why not? Let's continue. Okay, so let's just give a heads up here. Being this time limited experiment, not all architecture solutions are, you know, appropriate to real life scenarios. And I know some decisions are debatable, so I'm really willing to debate. If you want, this is my email, my Twitter, and let me know so we can keep this ball running, man. Or ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so here are the artifacts that we produced during this experiment. We got a Visual Studio solution with all the solution that we put together. It's available for you at any time in this URL. This is not an SXA solution. I would say, sorry, not a Helix solution. We are using just, as you can see, it's a very straightforward solution with only one project, and everything is in the same project, only one TDS project. Again, you're not supposed to do this way, right? You're supposed to do this correct. But this is just experiment. I like this excuse. And also we are producing a series of articles to be released. This is a work in progress. Lots of things are running, so not time yet, but these will be there as soon as possible. And also this presentation. Those are the artifacts produced by this experiment. And I would like to put in advance this conclusion. SXA is amazingly flexible. We ended up being able to do that, not without a few pains that I'm bringing you. Fortunately, you will not have to do that all alone because you're watching this presentation. Okay, so let's go to the Nuptial theme. It's a Bootstrap theme. It is, as you can see, it's responsive. It works fine in different devices. And it has, you know, it's not big deal. It has a CSS folder. It has a few folders for fonts, images, JS, and HTML files. Nothing fancy. It's really a normal template. It has, CSS files, it has JavaScript files, and of course, it has their images, right? And here I'm bringing you the base markup of this whole template. As you can see here, there are some things that will be problematic if you adopt that altogether in SXA. We got some, page header, as you can see here. This is not problematic at all. I'll tell later what is the problem. But okay, we have a page header here. We have internal components, internal markup. We have a JavaScript references in the end. Nothing fancy so far. But we have these divs outside, which is something that out of the box, SXA is not supporting, okay? Also, the markup of components, as you can see, it is pretty particular or peculiar. For instance, we have these custom properties in the markup as data section here, this data stellar background. These are all custom things that non-components in non-SXA out-of-the-box components will be able to make it. Even though this markup is quite simple, all the SXA out-of-the-box components cannot do it. Okay. All right. So I would like to go and start a first milestone. The first milestone was, quite simple. Just actually the debut work of the project. We're doing some installation, doing some setup, some creating tenant and adapt the theme to Nuptial Bootstrap, do the partial design for header, navigation, footer, and everything. We'll implement the markup and references from the index HTML file and basic structure for header, CSS, JavaScript, so every other pages can reuse it. Okay. Like I said, everything else is handled as static HTML. So the page is not fully dynamic, right? All right. So here comes the installation. I will actually, guys, there are some technical parts here that I'm not going to spend much time on it. Okay, I'll just go through everything, and if you have doubts, let me know. I'm watching here the chat window. Welcome, Edipo. Okay, so the first milestone, we did the ordinary installation of Sitecore 9 update 1. I know we are in update 2, but at the time of the experiment, we're not. We saw the SPE, PowerShell extensions, SXA itself, we publish, re-index, we build index, normal installation. Some particular things we had to do is to disable concatenation and minification because we're in development, so it's normal in SXA. You should do that if you are in development, right? Okay. We started here doing the grid system because we are incapable to use the grid system, out-of-the-box grid system that Bootstrap SXA brings you. So we need to create a grid system. This is one of the good things of SXA. It has that flexibility to create things like this grid system because we have... as you can see in the right here, you see the SXA's Bootstrap markup, which is quite different from what we have. So this is why we created a grid system. Based in Bootstrap, of course, we will, use the existing Bootstrap grid system and copy that and, basically duplicate that so we can create our grid system. We rename that and modified this property grid body view path. So we point to our new CS HTML file, right? Guys, I'm sorry, before I continue here, I will be uploading this presentation to our YouTube channel, and everybody will be able to download it, so you can have access to all this, okay? And then at the grid setup, we pointed the grid definition to our new grid system. This is how we got a new grid system, so we can create now our tenant and the site itself. We're doing this now. Created that. As you can see, we are creating a new theme, because we not only will have a new grid system, but also a new theme for our website. And then we select our grid system. Next, we did some adjustments in the theme. We uploaded the CSS files. We uploaded the JavaScript files to Sitecore SXA. We modify a little bit the theme inheritance. So we got rid of things we don't need. And that's one important thing. Fonts are managed as external CDN references. And this is something that normally you can upload to SXA easily, but we are managing this as a CDN, and then we publish. Okay, I made some highlights on the font issue and the font itself, because we found some issues. So originally our layout has fonts as CDN references, as you see. And SXA, in SXA, you cannot do that in the theme itself, because you need to upload the theme, the fonts itself to the theme, so you can use it. Okay, some here the alternatives that we got when dealing with fonts. We can keep them in CDN, but doing that correctly, of course. I am adding these references to the CDN to my layout, which is not good. Okay, so you should do that correctly. You can add fonts as files in the theme. You can upload them, but that's something you got to keep your attention to, because in this example, for instance, as you can see, we have font files with the same name, iCommune, and a different extension, .ttf or .svg or .woff. When you upload that to SXA, they will be renamed. I'm sorry, the extensions will be excluded, will be removed, and then we will end up with 4 files with the same name, right? iCommune for 4 iCommunes, because Sitecore removes the extension. So that's why we had to rename before uploading. If you choose to do that, don't forget this particularity, because this will break SXA's theming. And also, you should open a CSS file from iCommune, because we got some references to the old files, and since we renamed that, we got to change these references. Okay, we created a new layout, but why? I would like to say you should never do that. Okay, I did that because I was doing an experiment, but in a real life situation, you are not doing this. You are doing using the out of the box markup. But the reason we did that is because our markup has a few external CDN references, like I'm saying. Our SXA theme references requires all assets to be stored as files. And then there are some complexities to download these files from the CDNs. For instance, sometimes they reference another external file, so you have to make sure that you download everything. So we have some specific metadata as well as meta tags in the markup of our header. And again, this is just experiment, okay? Okay, but hold on. I am really using that excuse too often. So let me bring you what you should actually do, okay? So never change the layout. So always use the original SXA MVC layout, because this is capable of, at least for this experiment, I look at all the HTML, and SXA's MVC layout is capable for doing that. You should use that, and you have in the markup, you have a placeholder called head that you can use to inject your stuff as components, of course. So, do that. Also, you have this great extension from Michael West, Westco SXA extension, which is enabling you to, reference inside an SXA theme, an external reference, which is really a good fit for this. All right, so we set up our new layout. We created a view. We added the layout itself pointing to our view. We updated the template to use our new layout because we did that wrong. It's, again, just an experiment. We selected the nuptial theme as a default theme for our website. Right? Okay. Next, we like I mentioned before, SXA's out-of-the-box components, they always inject some markup. And here in this experiment, we got an important requirement, which is don't touch the markups. Okay, the markups should be respected. So we cannot use out-of-the-box SXA components because it, again, will inject some markup. So that's why we created some naked versions of SXA's components, okay? We created a naked version of the plain HTML component, but this time not injecting any markup. And also we created a new version of the naked splitter, which allows you to split a placeholder in the middle. But this time we did one that does not inject any markup. Okay. All right, we got all this. I would like to tell you, it's not a good practice to keep on, duplicating components in SXA and doing all that, because it can get really out of your control if you start duplicating components this way. I would like to bring you that there are other options to do that. For instance, in this blog post from Himadri, my coworker, we are bringing you a solution so you can have custom site-specific theming for your views. So you can use using the same component, having a view in one website and another view in a different website. Okay, thanks Himadri for that. Really love this. Everybody use that in the company. I will bring a new announcement in the end of this presentation, where I would like to catch up to this blog from Himadri to tell you how visionary he was in 2017 when he put that together. Okay, but continuing. Here's a footer that's part of the milestone 1 yet. It's a partial design. Like you do usually in SXA, you create a partial design. And then we added the 2 HTML blocks using the naked components, one for the top, the other one for the footer block. We're adding all that. We created a page design and named that homepage design. So we can map that to our template, to our page itself. Okay. And then the header partial design, again, I'll not spend much time here. We're just, adding some new components using the naked components. So we can do this, okay? And that's an important thing in SXA, guys. It's not just in this experiment. If you're working a partial design and you want to have a placeholder in your partial design that can be used by the the content editors outside of the partial design, what you have to do is to leave an empty placeholder like I'm doing here, so you can use that in experience editor outside of the partial design. If you don't do that, then that placeholder will not be reachable outside. Okay. And then the static components. So here we're just using the naked plain HTML to bring this content as components inside each of the placeholders that we got. Right. In the end of the first milestone, we got a layout issue. I noticed that by investigating that, I noticed that there was something in the SXA that was injecting an overlay class. This background you see here, that was being injected by SXA. I'm sorry, by my template, and was conflicting that with the SXA. So we disabled the CSS theme from SXA by setting that as unpublishable. So the CSS file, overlay CSS file, is not injected anymore, and our layout is respected. Okay, quick one, milestone 2. It's the second internal page. We'll do that all very similar to how we did in the first one. It's a home, a hero banner, a footer, there's a menu, and a form. The only extra is that everything will be static. Okay, and we started by creating a new page, and again, changing the layout. I would like to tell you again, don't do this. Anyhow, we created our page and added all the partial designs to it so it can look like our stuff. And we added a hero banner and etc. Okay, so milestone 3 is dynamic components. So we're getting out of these plain HTML text components and now creating some dynamic components. Okay, right. So when we are going to create components in SXA, of course, we look at the documentation. And you see again, since we got this markup to respect because of our experiment, if you look at the documentation, they are telling you that you must use this HTML SXA component call in your view. So you have something like this. This is how your view should look like. By looking at it, you can see that Sitecore is telling you should, if using SXA, you should have a predefined markup route there, right? Especially the SXA component stuff, but also the internal div is something we cannot afford. So, right, if you don't do this, then you will not be able to use Creative Exchange. So in our mission here, we need to respect this markup. So I needed to do this. Because of that, we're losing Creative Exchange for this component. Right? So here's the first component. It's a banner. It has a title, subtitle. It has a within date that the user can choose to hide. And the within date is a global date value. It's a global, okay? No, it's not just for this component, but for the whole website. And the same component will be in 2 different pages, so it should have different look and feel or different content on each. Here's again a weird HTML markup. Okay, so I will really be fast on these guys. I will not spend much telling you this. You can download the presentation later and see that in details if you want. We created a template for the within date. We call this nuptial settings. We created a model so we can have some, using Sitecore Rock, some code generation. We created our settings there in the content tree. And we created a data source template for the hero banner. We created model, etc., implemented that. This is standard component creation. Not go deep on this. Of course, we register dependencies because we're using dependency injection, so we need to do that. Replace the HTML block that was a static HTML component by our component. Okay, second component was this couple component, which is, you have a Green Bright information with the particularity that this information need to be managed globally. The groom and bride guys, the pictures, the names of them, they're not in the component data source itself, but it is global because multiple components will be using that. So we have here a component title, again, within date, city, country, all that is content, and also some fancy HTML again. Right, so we did the implementation of that. We created a template again for the within date settings with all that fields, groom and bride information. We updated the code generation and created the template and etc. Again, this is just normal implementation of a component, so won't hold you much on this. Once we replace the HTML block, we noticed that we got to change a little bit the style CSS file, the one that comes from the experiment, from the CSS bootstrap template. We added an import because, again, SXA was injecting something that was conflicting with that. And the footer. The footer is, simple. Has a title. It has some social media links and has a copyright in the bottom, and again, some fancy HTML. Right? Okay, so we created the data source template and a model. Some code generation. We created the rendering again and replaced that. We can go with details on this. Don't worry. And after that, we got a problem because the icons were not looking as it should. This is because we are now in a dynamic component, a real component, not a HTML block. And we noticed that we were using a general link. As you can see here, all the fields were general link. And general link demands, actually, our CSS demands that your link has something inside. And I added a space, as you can see here, so it look at well again. And here's the third and last component, groom and bride. It has a title. Again, it has groom and bride information. Like I told you before, this info is global and not in the data source and not fancy HTML. Right, we use the data source template. We created an existing data source template that we created for the couple component. We created a rendering for that. We created another component, but using the same controller as the other component, just a different view, as you can see here, and replace the block. Cool. When we did that, we got our experiment done. That's all was the boring part. Now that we got our thing working, here are the experiment outputs. Okay, we got our components. They are all experience editor friendly. You can edit that using what you see, what you get, experience editor normal. The website is fully SXA compatible, but there are some lacking areas. Okay, we lost the SXA toolbar and the drag and drop functionalities at some part of this experiment. This is gone. I haven't had time to got get into the reasons of that. And of course, creative exchange feature is compromised, doesn't work fully. Okay, the third output I would like to bring you is that you should not change the SXA layout. Fourth one is that theming can be tricky, especially if you have CDN references, if you have external references inside CSS, if you have paths to assets inside the CSS that might need adjustment. Some CSS and JavaScript can be overridden by the SXA theme inheritance, like we saw. We got custom components or custom views for existing components may be necessary to respect exact markup. So if you have this requirement that you need to respect a certain markup, you should avoid, you should be forced to create dynamic components, so custom components for you, because the out of the box won't do it. Right? Some conclusions I would like to bring from this experiment. First one is that SXA is amazingly flexible. Okay, we ended up doing that. It has a custom grid system that is only allowed because SXA allows you to do that. We got some site-based theming that is there because of SXA. We got the flexibility of the components, so you can create different versions of components and inject different views into an existing components. So that's all good. Okay, and the second conclusion is that having a predefined, pre-existing markup in SXA is possible, but it can be tricky. It also might be as costly as traditional site core development, because you'll be forced to be creating some custom components all the time, and you might be increasing your maintenance complexity. Okay, I got a very special announcement from Adam, the guy that created SXA. The last time I presented this was on Sitecore Jordan. Was a great experience, and then Adam was looking into that, and let us everybody knows that in the next SXA version, the next release, he told me today that the release is being tested now, and it's working. You will have finally the theming, site-specific theming for views, okay? Meaning that you'll be able to use the same component in a different website with a different view. And this is so important because SXA is getting, out of the box, something that my coworker and friend Himadri built 2 years ago. Okay, so this is a very important information for the community. Looks like the next experiments like this will be much easier. Okay. All right, guys. That's all I got. I would like to know if anyone has any questions. This is the chance I have to read your comments in YouTube. Amitabh, my email is that rodrigo@peplau.com. Oh no, .br in the end, .br. Okay, peplau.com.br. BR from Brazil. Edipo, you're saying this is good for front end devs, but not for, oh no, not good for front end devs, but good for backends. Actually, it's the opposite. SXA was built to, please the front end devs and the marketing team, while the backend guys will be, a bit but behind, I would say, because the whole idea in SXA is that you can build pages without even opening Visual Studio. But I am trying to break this in this experiment. Thanks, Diego, for the props. SXA without commerce have a functionality clone. Edipo, I'm not sure if you're talking about cloning items or what exactly. Let me know if you can elaborate that in the chat window. Edipo, my experiment were run in July. Okay, we're in the time that we are in Sitecore 9 update 1. Oh yeah, yeah. Edipo is saying that he was referring to the export HTML creative exchange. It's good. It's not good for front end devs. They don't like to use that. Exactly. They don't like that. Actually, that part of SXA, in my opinion, was built to allow that flow that I showed in the beginning, where you have that flow that you can use SXA and Sitecore to build your wireframes and then send that to the front end devs. But indeed, man, there are lots of limitations, like I said in the beginning of this presentation, and that's why front ends don't like that. Because of that, I think this experience shows very well how is the normal flow of most of the agencies, where you have the HTML done and then you start the implementation. So that's the whole idea in this experiment. Uh, yes, Edipo, the new version of SXA is not out there yet, according to Adam. But that will bring you the possibility to basically you can use the out of the box components from SXA, but create your own view for that. By doing that, you'll be able to inject your custom markup to the view. Not sure if that covers. The drag and drop stuff was I'm pretty sure that was something I did, especially modifying the SXA layout that I advise you not to. Oh, okay. Edipo is telling that in SXA we are supposed to clone existing renderings instead of duplicate them. Yeah, it's an approach as well, man. But if you need to have your component with a different view, you cannot clone then, because if you clone and modify that, all the other references of the same cloning will be modified. What I'm telling here is that we are duplicating the components so you can have a different view for that. According to Adam, we are really close to a final solution, a definite solution for that, because we'll be able to use the same components with a different view. Okay, Edipo, maybe you can. I guess I will close this my presentation now. But if you want, we can join you can join the hangouts. I was telling hangover. The hangout, so we can continue this chat. I'm trying to invite you now, man. All right, thank you guys. Good. Edipo, I would need to invite you here. I'm sorry, we're quite out of time. For the next user group, Edipo, you are always so participative. So I would like to invite you since the beginning to join in the next one, our hangout, so you can express yourself. Okay. Okay, cool guys. Thank you very much. Have a great night, everybody. And again, next user group will be in after symposium, few weeks after, with our recap. Myself, Diego, and Vinicius. Thank you very much, and see you later.
Stars are falling down toward the moon. Our heads, we see the people dead and crawling on the streets. But all you think is just about your life and your path. What makes you strong to face the weight of human beings? If we together with somebody near you is what you need from now. Why are you losing control? You gave us so before you knew that you do not feel. God that you were born alone and will always be. We trust in faith and think that this will be forever. But you don't need nobody to be happiness. If we together with somebody near you is what you need from now. Why are you losing control? It's time to think on it, 'cause things are changing around. The road is moving below your feet and your down. When you that you are home, you are there because don't forget that you are wrong. Don't forget you should be being life is just a dream that you have when you are away. Sign that trace that will just fly away. teach you know the love you have and more first to do. Love yourself before the world decide. That's the key of life. Be free to walk the life. You've been together with somebody near you is what you need from now. Why are you losing control? It's time to think of it. Your things are changing, you're moving below your fear, and you gotta run. You've been together with somebody near you is what you need from now. Why are you losing together? Losing control. Why are you losing control? Together, losing control.
Thank you. Good night. We love you all.